very thankful that you took the time. I am happy to get to know you. And yeah, as I normally do is I give you the opportunity to introduce yourself and why we're having this call. I'm always talking to people that are in robotics and what they do with robots, how they came in contact with robots, what is your background. And what I'm trying to do is showing people that some people have very straight CVs and they had been in contact with electronics and computers and computer science very early on. But some people, for example, just as myself, yeah, started with something totally different, but then throughout a very interesting journey, yeah, we are we are who we are, and we do what we do. And yeah, I would like to get to know you, so maybe you can give us a little insight in your life.
Okay, absolutely. So my name is Ian Pritchard. I started getting into robotics back in high school. My high school had a robotics program. So that was kind of my introduction into the whole field of robots, of course. Um, what got me into kind of the field of humanoid robots, it might sound kind of silly, but it is the truth. What got me into humanoid robots was in 2014, again, when I was still in high school, of course, when the video game series Five Nights at Freddy's was released. And I was intrigued by the novel concept of a restaurant, for example, that could have humanoid robots that would go around and interact with patrons. So actually be ambulatory, be able to walk around and interact with people. And I thought that was a pretty novel concept. So um, what I started back in 2014 was to try and replicate that same type of concept, not the restaurant, of course, but the robots. And of course, as a high school student back then, trying to develop that on a very minimal budget was kind of my reality at the time. So just doing that with hobby servos and whatnot and stepper motors, looking back, wasn't super feasible, but it's how I got into it. After high school, I had started off. I had went into electronics engineering technology at NAIT. Graduated from that in 2018. In 2020, I graduated from NAIT in nanosystems engineering technology. And since then, I have been working in radio communications, civvy side, but I had still been developing this humanoid robot platform to try and recreate these animatronic characters since 2014. It's been ongoing for the better part of 10 years now. But in 2016, I had kind of modified that a bit. I had modified my goal to include the development of a general purpose and open source humanoid robotics platform, because I was thinking to myself, if I'm going to be developing a humanoid robot anyway to make these characters come to life, I might as well expand upon that and make something general purpose that can then be customized in appearance and function to fit a very niche goal or very specific application. So that's where I'm at today.
I mean, it seems like the last few weeks or the last 2 months were so big in humanoids and or in
Yeah.
humanoid robots. And um, in the last episode, I was speaking with Trent and with Rob, so they're working on the DEX hand. But throughout the last few weeks, I saw multiply projects that working not only in humanoids but open source humanoids, right? One of the questions that Trent had when we saw K Scale Labs, uh, why not working on the already existing humanoid projects, open source projects, right? Because this is the idea with open source. Everyone is working on the same kind of goal, and you're putting your forces together, so it is easier to create something bigger out of it, right? We have seen in the last couple of weeks and months a lot of commercial success when it comes to humanoids, right? Everyone is talking about the 675 million that figure raise. They do a collab with BMW. We were talking about Apptronic and the collab with Mercedes. So it seems like humanoids seems to be the hype topic of this year. So embodied AI. We met over Twitter, so or X, and there you can see a very active and engaging community. We're talking about the different kind of things within humanoids. And just the other day, I had another call with somebody who is a German but lives in the Silicon Valley for over 10 years, and working on a humanoid robot as well. I think the name's Mona. The company's called Kind Kind Humanoid or Kind Robots. And so the question again, why? And there's existing projects, right? There's Poppy, for example, and there's other existing open source humanoid robots. So when I saw your posts, you were I think there were a few parts. You can come back later to it. But and my question comes back to why not joining forces and working together versus try to reinvent the wheel. And there's different reasons for it, and I would like to hear what is your reason for it.
Okay, well, absolutely. So I have been following closely the work of K-Scale Labs, and I've been in contact with their team, discussing more about humanoid robot applications and following their work and vice versa. What I have been doing is I've been collaborating with Cole from Point Blank LLC, and he has a project right now called Fractional Robots. And they also have a Telegram group as well, and they've been working on developing an open source humanoid robotics platform. So him and I, we've been collaborating between our two designs, sharing design ideas, files, etc., to try and essentially work towards a more decentralized humanoid robotics platform. So people have the ability to take a pre-existing tested design and build it themselves, build it in stages. Potentially, one thing I'm looking at with my startup Anthrobotics is to offer a pre-configured, tested, customized a humanoid robot built off an open source platform. If, say, someone wants to have a humanoid in their home and doesn't want to pay a very expensive price for it, but maybe they're not super savvy on wanting to develop it themselves. But again, providing that open source option and collaborating with other humanoid open source projects is something I'm working on to, again, not, like you said, not reinvent the wheel, to make it easier and to make development easier between platforms, working for the kinematics and everything on that side of the house. If we take design elements from one platform and another, merge it into more of a hybrid, it makes that development process so much easier.
Well, you just meant you were mentioning a few things. I might need to come back to you after the podcast because I think there's too many words, too many names
Oh,
flying
sorry.
around. No, I love it. The thing is that just the other day I saw for the very first time Hugging Face entering the arena, and so I was pitching this to my friend who is in NLP, and for a longer period of time already. And so Hugging Face were able to positioning themselves and building a platform where other people can build their own things on it and then work together. And having such a player, and I think their valuation and the money they raised in the last year was, um, I think the valuation is over 1 billion, and the money they raised is something in the mid um, two or three, four, 500 million as well. So it's a huge player, and what they do so well and why the evaluation is so high is because they're playing the community game so well. So everyone knows how hard it is to build a community. Everyone knows how hard it is to maintain an engaged community, and not just having a community so you can sell your product to, right? So building a platform is not the holy grail, but definitely something that companies are aiming for, because then versus building products and selling them, you have a platform where other people are coming and building and working together and using existing tools or coming up with new tools. So having a player like Hugging Face coming up in the or starting in the humanoid open source game, so to speak. Isn't that something that you just mentioned is the goal of the people and the company that you are in contact with? So because this is I have a Telegram channel myself, and I just realized how hard it is. I mean, it was obvious, but how hard it is to really maintain an engaged community. And here I would like to understand better how you guys aiming to tackle that problem.
Well, it's really just to reach out to fellow developers who are working on their own projects, and also to kind of create something that people could take the design of it, modify it, make further refinements to it, share those developments back with the community again. Again, kind of like what Hugging Face has for their AI models. People can take them or refine them, work with them, and collaborate on them too. For humanoid robots, it's going to be a very similar thing if it's not already. You're going to have a lot of different smaller players in the game for small startups, independent developers of these humanoid robots. It's going to be important for them to collaborate together to kind of almost like an open source consortium of sorts that they can work together to solve the larger problems associated with humanoids. You're going to have different designs that use different actuator technologies, different sensor configurations. There might not be one, I guess, holy grail type design of a humanoid robot per se. There's look at the major commercial players like Figure, 1X, Agility Robotics. They're all slightly different designs for humanoid robots. Some even have different leg configurations, but they all target a very specific market per se. A lot of them general purpose labor or a warehouse work. But again, they all have niche markets. The beauty of open source robots, I like, the potential for open source humanoids is you can have multiple communities come together into almost like one humanoid robot open source community, and you can have so many players developing niche humanoid robots for so many different applications. You don't need just one robot, you can have multiple of them, and they can all show design elements, LLMs, for example, all of that stuff. And I think the Hugging Face community for that would be great.
It's funny that you mentioned the niche part, right? Because so I'm working for a robotic software company. We have different platforms where our system is running on. So mainly the KUKA platform, FANUC platform, and the Universal Robot platform. And yeah, when Universal Robot entered the robot world, or they started a new niche, right, the cobot world, to make it more accessible, and it's the same, right? When I guess when they started, said, dude, there's major robot players out there. Why starting a new robot company? So I think it's very valid what you're saying, that there's different niche, there's different needs, and especially in open source where you have different, let's say, ranges. Because we were talking the last time, what is a sweet spot for what is cheap, what is affordable, right? So is 20K affordable? Is 8K affordable? Is 3K affordable? And so I think there's a wider range of things that can be affordable. You might or might not know him. His name is Chris Paxton, and he used to work for AI Meta, or Meta, yeah, for Meta. And now he just started working for Hello Robot. So they have this stretch, and yeah, it's kind of a robot. It's a mobile robot with a arm, and it's open source as well, and it's able to you can drive it around in your home, and it can do certain tasks. So here you have an affordable open source robot that looks not like a humanoid, and but I think it's quite successfully in the things it does already, right? And yeah, what is do, I guess you're familiar with the project.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, is there something you would like to say about this?
I mean, I think it's a pretty nice platform, kind of like Aloha, where it provides a ready to go like manipulation platform for research and development and whatnot. It's a good platform. I do quite like that idea. Same with Aloha. It provides researchers a good option. But if you were to take, say, an average consumer, it seems like a very kind of expensive thing to have in home, especially since, say, the average home, it's made for humans to walk around and operate in the environment like a human. So to me, it makes sense to develop a affordable open source humanoid robot that can operate in someone's home, uh, just like a human would, and still even provide researchers or developers that ability to perform research with it, to develop algorithms for it or controls for it and refine it, and to have something at least semi-reliable that's not going to be prohibitively expensive, I guess.
We make two jumps now. One jump will be going back in your vita, and the other one will going to what will come in the future. Good, but I have a lot of people that have students, and I'm asking this question very regularly on the podcast. That is, there's so many fields in robotics that you can go towards to, right? There's people that have a background in even mechanical engineering. There's some people that are studying directly just getting a degree in robotics, right? And then there's computer science you can do, and there's so many things that you can do, and especially for younger folks that maybe doesn't have so much contact. You said in your high school already there was a robot course or opportunity to get in contact with robots. So my question is, if people standing in front of that robot wall or on the wall of robotics that has so many books that you can take out, right? What was back then? What was for you a figure, a person, a book, a course that really gave you a path to go deeper into robotics? Because people, I think a lot of younger people are interested in, can I secure that I get a job when I get out of my degree, and versus what is interesting, right? And maybe you can elaborate a little bit on that, how this was for you, and what helped you, or what could potentially help other people finding their way.
Okay, so for me, again, the motivation for my further pursuit into the field of robotics was twofold. I guess the first one coming from the actual course itself. It was a VEX robotics competition where we had a specific challenge we had to solve. And then as a group of students, we had to find our own solution within, of course, a set of constraints, a set of rules, regulations for how big the robot can be, what it can and cannot utilize, etc.
Hmm.
And then we had to solve that problem and try to solve it to win the competition. So to try and get the best results possible, to try and be as efficient as possible, as quick as possible, etc. So again, to try and be motivated to solve a specific niche task, that was a big motivator for me. And then, of course, and the second motivator for me was to see a potential application for how a humanoid robot could be used in a niche market or a niche job. Even though it was a fictional application, it still could potentially be a niche market even in the future when the technology gets there. So to find that motivation, I would have to say, find a goal a problem that exists that you want to solve using robotics, and it doesn't have to be humanoid in nature. But if there's a problem that exists that could be solved with a robotic device, try and tackle that problem if you can, and then try and look for employment in that market. See if there's something locally, or if there's say a startup that's wanting to solve that problem. Go to them with that same motivation and join the team.
So I like the idea, because you having such a big background in academia, but being, how do you say this, problem solving focused, I think is something that is very commercial. And I think closing this bridge, it's a recurring topic here, because why separate these two worlds, right? There is a reason. Not everything needs to be commercialized. We do need some part of academia that is studying, and that is researching, and that is building things that not necessarily need a customer. So, but we do need to be, and I mean, I think in Germany, I'm not 100% sure how it is in other countries, but I can speak for the academia in Germany. It's very hard if you spend most of the time in your research in university, that you still need to raise money for those projects. So one of the guys that is working in the company I'm working for, Micropsy, he did his PhD here at the Technical University of Berlin, and I think he said it. Um, I'm not 100% sure, but I think he said it took him 6 years to finish the PhD, and like a third or sometimes even 50% of the time, what you do is trying to find companies that are investing in your projects so the PhD position can exist, right? So, and I think here it's very hard to really focus on either side. So I mean, it's nice to focus on things that are interesting for the industry, but being in a position where you not really can focus on the problem versus I need to raise money to be able to focus on the problem. I think this is something we need to get rid of. But as I said, and I see this very often with technical founders that they're so far away from the actually customer or the needs of the customer or the problem of the customer that they're focusing on different things. So I'm very glad that you very early on seems to be have this incentive of finding problems or working on problems that needs to be solved. Making the jump back to today, you said that you are having your own startup. Maybe you can tell me a little bit about this. I'm very curious to see, because this is the reason why we came in contact. I saw some pictures. Yeah, maybe you can say a little bit about this.
Okay, thanks. Yes, so in 2016, I had decided after starting on back in 2014 when I had wanted to recreate those animatronic characters from that series, I had called that Project 87, and it still continues on to this day to create those animatronic characters, but on a humanoid robotics platform. So in 2016, I decided, okay, well, why not expand upon that? And rather than just laser focus on those characters, let's build a platform that those characters can be built off of, and then provides more options for people. What if they don't want those characters or something like that? Well, now you have a humanoid robotics platform that can be customized to the end user's goal, whatever appearance they want. My whole motivation behind Anthrobotics is to make robots that aren't boring in a sense. And I'm not saying that other humanoid robot projects out there are boring, by no means. I absolutely love to see the variety and the different designs and configurations and specific niche applications those robots are going for. But I just believe that humanoid robots need to be more varied, more customized options. And really, it would be great if no two humanoids were exactly the same. Maybe the structure, the core mechanics underneath can be just similar just for the sake of having a unified platform. But to be able to have someone customize their own robot however they want it to in appearance, that's the whole motivation behind the startup, is to enable people to be able to do that. And as a potential future business thing, to continue on with the development and further refinement of the platform, of course money would have to be made. So to be able to have pre-configurable options for people to have their own variety and their own choice of humanoid built around the same core platform, that's what I want to do with that. But to make it open source, so if people want to collaborate on community designs remixed from the official source files, that's what I want to do. Get humanoid robots into the hands of as many users and small developers as possible to just build this whole larger open source community for humanoid robots, and to join forces with other startups and developer teams to just further get this whole underdog, a humanoid robot movement going, kind of thing.
And as in the last few years or last 8 years, I'm working together with startups. So I do know the different stages of a startup. I'm working for a startup slash scale up myself. So I'm very much aware of what is necessary, or what are the needs for the startup in the different stages. So if we would use I'm not 100% sure if there's a real scale that we can point our fingers toward this, but where are you situated in the moment? Are you, because I'm speaking to founders that don't need to raise because they're sold businesses before, so it's much easier for them to just focus on things because there's some resources they can rely on. And there's other founders, they are they are in the middle of raising, or they raise some So they raised some money already, but they do need to raise more so they can stay focused on the project. Maybe you can tell us a little bit how commercialized, how professional, um, without being judgy, how professional the situation you are in. Because sometimes I have people that are working on their startup on the side, but they have a business that supports their own idea of the startup. So I'm very curious to hear what situation you are in.
Okay. So right now, uh, the whole development process over the past 8 years or so has really all been self-funded. I've been really hesitant, or I guess almost reluctant, to have to approach VCs or potential like investors, even for like pre-seed or angel investing, until I had a fully developed prototype that was functional. And I always thought to myself, maybe I need a full size prototype that's ready to go before anyone would consider investing. And I'm kind of coming to the realization now that maybe I should approach um, VC funds or angel investors to kind of accelerate this development process. Because I realize with more equipment, more resources, the physical hardware, I can get this there, get this to the point that it could be ready to roll, but it can't happen without funding.
I mean, I like the idea that you said, okay, I would like to have something before I start money and raise money, right? So, just 2 weeks ago, I had a call with the founder, and he said that he's working on the project for, I think it was like 3 years or 4 years, and uh, and he said that he knows everything about the technical parts, but he knows nothing about marketing and selling. And so, but I mean, the core uh, reality is you do need all three of them. No startup will work. I mean, if you have an exception, even if you have an exceptional product, right? Because there's already an existing market almost all the time. So even then, you do need. I mean, you do need a good product anyways, right? This seems to be the baseline. But even if you have an exceptional product, a mediocre product will run past you if they have good marketing and sales. So especially for technical, and this is a recurring topic as well, not only in the podcast, but I see in conversations with founders that are very technical, as they have no experience in marketing, if they have no experience in sales, right? Especially, for example, in software, you you're not making money. And the idea that you can that you can bootstrap yourself, because this was the idea of the founder I was speaking 2 weeks ago. So bootstrap yourself, so finding customers, and then you can ongoing and grow organically. The problem that you have here is that you're always under time constraint. You're always relying on the on existing resources, right? And as you said, there's a limitation of your time. There's a limitation of the budget. There's a limitation of um, the tools that you can use, right? And this is one part of it, but the other part, as you said before, the problem solving part. So potentially in the future, you do need to find customers. And so it's very hard to come up with all the ideas and all the varieties and all the pros and cons of a product by your own on your own. So having the conversation, even if you don't want to raise money, but having the conversation with potential customers. I mean, if you have a community, I haven't seen too many products coming out of a community, so I don't have too much experience here. But a community can actually help, obviously, with you need to have a look at this, you need to have a look at that, you need to take this into account, right? But normally you need to push yourself out. You were talking about an MVP, right? So a minimal valuable product that you can actually use. This is a starting point, right? There's always iterations and iterations, and as fast as you have these iterations with the feedback from potential customers or people that have experience in that ground, your learning curve is much higher. So, um, having said all that and your own thoughts on that, what do you think will be the next steps in your journey?
Oh, for
Mm-hmm.
my steps towards this.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I find that it's so easy to get caught into this recurring development cycle of, oh yeah, I've built this design and I've tested it a bit. but then you see a new design of, let's say, a leg configuration or something like that, and then you're like, oh, I want to try that design. Maybe that'll work better. And then you work on building that, and you get into this almost never-ending cycle of developing different designs and iterations, and then you never really move forward that much. So what I'm a next step is to just, for me, is to settle on a design, and I've settled on a design now, and we're going to work with that design, just test it thoroughly, and hopefully incorporate it into the first version of this robot to just actually start moving forward towards where we have that minimal viable product essentially.
It's not necessarily testing out other designs. It's testing your own design and putting your own design on the extremes, right? And testing your own design from different perspective that you haven't thought of yourself. Just 3 weeks ago, I got this phone. So this is an iPhone, and but all the years before that, the last 10 years, 15 years, I had an Android phone. So I wasn't very keen on getting on the iPhone, especially as I knew these companies making it as hard as possible to switch, right? So what I'm saying is, I dived into it, and I spoke to someone who's sitting right next to me in the office, who has an other point of view because he's an Apple user for a decade now. And so what I'm saying is that I couldn't come up with all the questions and answers to the iPhone because I was not using that. And having someone else who was using that for a much longer period of time, he was able to show me some shortcuts, some tricks, some features that I wasn't able because I wasn't sitting down and looking at tutorials or reading through the manual. So my point is, having someone outside my own world and giving me insight in their world can be a huge advantage. It's not a disadvantage, and it should not be, how do you say this in English? Should not be able to pull off your focus, right? No one is interested in that. It's just it seems to have the other people can have the ability to accelerate our own learnings and can help us look at things we haven't been overlooked because we were so focused on one single detail that actually doesn't matter. So as as um as an advice, even if you don't ask me, I like giving advices. No one asking me to ask my wife. As an advice is not being focused on just it's your solution that you would then present out to the world, and then everyone else can work on it, because this is the idea of open source, right? Versus um, trying to find the sweet spot between staying core to your idea and to your design, and then incorporating the learnings. Because you seem still very young, I haven't got the opportunity to ask you how old you are, but you're still very young, right? And I mean, I'm still very young,
Yeah.
41. So uh, it's there's still a long way to go, and we do know that still. I don't know if this number is still up to date, but like 9 of 10 startups are still failing, right, in the very early phase. And I don't know how many can talk about it as much as you like. So is it you, because the founder I was talking to is a one-man show. Is it you, or are you more than one? How is it? How is the startup?
Oh, like as far as the team goes?
Yes.
Oh, it was from the very beginning. It's just myself and my brother working on this, and then of course collaborating with other developers from other open source projects in, say, the United States, for example, and elsewhere. But other than that, just two of us working on the hardware essentially. So
I mean, hardware
yeah.
is hard, right? Especially in robotics. I'm very envious now, jealous, I think is the English word, that you're working together with your brother. My brother is a very hands-on guy. I'm trying to be not trying to, yeah, I'm not working with my hands. So my brother is a mechanic. He works for BMW, and he's building stuff, right? I'm a talker. Uh, That's the reason why I have a podcast. So I'm a talker. He is a builder, and but having the opportunity to work together with a sibling, I think it's a great opportunity. I would love to do this, and Yeah, I'm very keen on finding out more about the commercial or the commercial side of, about your startup. So very often, because I was in the Twitter world for a few years, and people are all about, do you have a domain? Do you have a name? People spend hours and weeks coming up with the right name, registering one URL after the other, one domain after the other. What is our corporate identity? These kind of things, right? Versus work on the product until it's ready.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be perfect, is another advice. It doesn't need to be perfect, as you said, right? It needs to be showing what is the idea behind that. And so if you're saying you're working on this project for a few years, if you allow me, if you allow me the question, how do you manage to continue working on those projects? Do you guys, you and your brother, do you have day jobs that you're working on, and you do this as a side business? Is this your main project, and you won the lottery? So what is behind that? I'm very curious.
Oh, we work day jobs. I work telecommunications, and he works in like industrial assembly. So everything is just our own funding going to this, and we're really just working on this ourselves, essentially. Yeah, no, we're not that lucky for a lottery win or anything like that, or any investment yet into this point. Again, because we've been so laser focused on getting a prototype, we haven't even approached to get any like seed funding or anything like that. So
Mm.
it's all just been us working on this after work. This is what we've been doing essentially.
Yeah, like I said, I'm very jealous because having something that you can work on, right? Having something that is taking all your attention and it's a gift, because a lot of people, and I call myself into that kind of group, are wandering around and with no goal, with no aim. It took me a few years, much longer than I wanted to be. Now, I'm being very personal here, but just recently, just the last few years, I've been okay. So this is something that I'm very interested in, robotics and automation, and because I do think the positive effects in it, and I would like to be able to somehow, even though I'm not a builder, I'm a talker, um, redefining that industry, right? Because if we just being it commercialized, if we're just giving it into their hands, we don't have the opportunity to to build the path itself, right? So automation and humanoids, it's a big topic, and I do know one of the main selling points is labor shortage, and it is, and there's a lot of difficult or dangerous works that need to be done not by humans rather than by robots, right? But we do need to be transparent, and it is a threat in the very end, right? I've been working on the shop floor for many years now, and you're always looking for opportunities to get more machines or less people working with more machines. So it is a threat to working force. Not to all, not everything can be automated, but I mean, what will be the end, right? What if machines can do everything that we do? What happens to us? Companies do need to pay taxes for us. They do need to pay us, right? But if the robot is bought and paid, I mean, a lot of startups now are going into subscription models. But yeah, the idea is I would like to be part of this path, and I think people like you and your brother are doing a very good job in helping us out. So not everything lands into the hand, and it's not evil corporations, but you do know that everything needs to be paid for in the very end. So only those ideas that find people that pay for them or companies will last in the very end. So open source is definitely an interesting topic. Another thing I would like to come back on. Is hardware. You just said it. Hardware is hard, and it takes a lot of energy and resources. So I think you have a 3D printer at home. I think I could have guessed that. Not a genius.
Yeah, it's those bamboo labs. Yeah.
And the question is here. So what do you think in the future? Because this was a topic in the last episode. if you work on, I mean, software is one topic, but in everything and being able to control humanoid, because these two guys, Trent and Rob, they're working on a DEX hand, right? And it's still
Yeah.
very complicated to move a hand, not just a gripper that opens and closes, right? So when it comes to humanoid, there's it needs to keep its balance. It needs to be able to move the arms and the legs and the head and the hands in the very end. So there's the software part, and then there's the hardware part, something that you need to build, you need to buy, right? Maybe you can tell us a little bit about this because it seems to be one of the main reasons, one of the main bottlenecks why humanoids are not as accessible, and in the past hasn't the development was not as high because you do need parts, you do need electronics service, you do need all those things. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about this, especially as you're bootstrapping yourself and financing everything on your own.
Okay, absolutely. So when I was searching in the very beginning, searching for what components are going to be required to build this thing, what motors are going to be required, actuators, reducers if they're required to amplify the torque, how are the motors going to know their position? So encoders are going to need to be a thing. Inertial measurement units, so it has some spatial awareness, acceleration, balance, etc., a sense of direction. Then of course you have your optical sensors, your audio sensors. If you want to be able to have it interface with humans a lot easier, you got to be able to talk to it, right? So there's all these different factors as well as structure. What's it made out of? How heavy is it going to be? One of my original prototype robots was constructed using steel and aluminum parts. Well, the steel was pretty heavy, whereas 3D printers make it so easy to print very lightweight materials, and then maybe a bit of aluminum extrusion that goes a long way with that. So what the approach I've been taking, and I've borrowed some of these concepts as well from Point Blank LLC, from Cole's uh, humanoid, open source humanoid development project as well. And I'll send you that information as well. Um, Essentially, commercial off the shelf. If you can acquire a lot of these components off, say, Amazon, for example, for like encoders, IMUs, microcontrollers for the very low level functions, things like that. And then you can source if mass produced brushless motors. And then, of course, you have your 3D printable filaments to then fabricate all the parts yourself. It makes it so much easier to rely on commercial off-the-shelf components because there's already mass production of it. It's not super specialized, but you can build specialized devices with them, depending how you go about it. So if you were to say take the latest actuator I've developed, and rather the actuator itself is based off an open source design. I'm going to be publishing that information as well shortly. But essentially, it's remixed off of open source design that's based off of kind of a conceptual drawing off of an original commercial actuator, essentially. It allows you to have this iTorque back drivable solution for maybe it's like $175 Canadian. It cost me to make it. And depending on the current you're putting into that actuator, depending on the voltage, sorry, the motor itself, you can get like 180 Newton meters in theory for torque on that thing. Now, that's pretty good. But what material is the gearbox made out of? So I don't anticipate to get 180 Newton meters by printing it out of PLA, but perhaps switching to nylon or steel gears might make that a little more possible, or injection molded plastic potentially. But essentially, the point I'm trying to make here is if we were to approach this with a commercial off-the-shelf components, it makes it a lot easier to build a humanoid robot or any robot for that matter, rather than having to have all the tooling, all the equipment to make all your motors, sensors, electronics in-house. And not to mention, you would also need an incredibly high budget to do that. Like,
Mm,
I believe 1X is able to make all their actuators in-house. Figure might as well. Tesla, of course, I'm pretty sure they can as well because they have that capability, the manufacturing capacity, and the budget. But as a independent hobbyist or someone trying to do a startup, you would definitely need to tap into that commercial off the shelf a capability that exists there. Plus, the supply chain is already there. You can just buy from vendors like Amazon or vendors like companies on that sell on AliExpress. You're waiting a bit more time to get it, but you don't have to deal with the in-house manufacturing, and you can still buy the parts at scale too, which is nice.
Manufacturing is it's one of the hardest part, right? I think just a few days ago, I was reading about how fast they were producing the what's the English word? What is the name of it? The Tesla, this big metal Tesla truck.
Oh, the Cybertruck, right?
Yes, thanks to Cybertruck.
Yeah, yeah.
So they were talking about so how fast it had been manufactured and how good or how bad the quality of that is. And I think Brad Addock, so the founder and CEO of Figure, um, he was very he was much more transparent about these. Building all those things in-house is not only expensive, but a lot of these things are not existing, right? Because there's no other company you can buy things off. So you do need to buy basically CNC machines and build everything on your own, especially for a larger scale. You do need to come up with how can I produce this on a major scale, right? Because you would like to keep the costs in a specific range, right? And if you're building everything by hand, I mean the cost is much higher. So trying to come up with a standardized idea, not only how the things are designed but produced, yeah, I think is very essential for every single startup and especially in humanoids. Um, Do you have a timeline? When I work together with customers, it's always, what is your timeline? Because some of them have very clear ideas, and these are the projects that have the highest probability of yeah, getting done in that time frame. If you don't have a timeline, then how do you think the future, the next few years will look like? But do you have something in mind? So I would like to get this done until this and this date. I would like to get that done until that date. So I'm very curious.
Okay, well, essentially, in my line of work, we have a kind of a saying we go by that no plan survives first contact. So we can have a plan laid out for like, oh, this is what we're going to do over the next 3 years. But unforeseen developments could come up, shortages in supply or funding, for example, and then you kind of have to adjust to that. And you're like, okay, we have to push this. We have to push what we were going to do here this month, 2 months to the right, for example, to account for this. Probably goes in any business, really, but as far as our timeline goes, really right now, I kind of take things. I set myself a goal. It's like, okay, this is what we're going to do for the next 3 months, and within 3 months, we want to have, say, these actuators, enough of these actuators built to be able to test out this leg assembly. Well, then 1 week at a time, we'll say build these many actuators, make sure they're tested, assembled, ready to go. Really, sometimes it comes down to like you take things 1 week at a time to fit into that larger goal. And I had originally set goals for like, over the next 2 years we'll do this, but now it's to the point of, within these many months we'll do this. And I find being able to focus on these specific tasks at a time enable us to be more focused and then get to that end goal a little bit quicker, kind of, which is it's a little bit easy to do that rather than set all of these goals up for, say, the next 2 years. We want to have it walking, talking, and doing all these tasks, but we don't have any motors built or actuators built. So it's nice to focus in on those smaller goals, and then it will all fall into place essentially in the grander scheme of things once we have something tangible to work off of. So
I mean, it's not about having a plan or like a detailed plan or milestones. It's as you said, I mean, it seems like you're doing this naturally, but if and nothing is set in stone, right? Don't get me wrong. I think it's finding the right balance between having a plan and having milestones that brings you closer to that goal, and then daily or weekly tasks that are enabling you to getting to those milestones, right? So this is something I'm saying very often, but it's having the big goal, but putting it into smart into smaller, digestible um, chunks. So, because I think if you don't, I mean, and it's not about spending so much time on the timeline and details, and I will do this on this day and this on this minute, because this is actually just procrastination disguised as action, right? I have the feeling I do something, I'm very busy and I'm planning actually, build. But having a rough plan and having, because it gives you it gives you structure, it gives you an idea where you go towards to. I think it can definitely help. And in the very end, if you do these kind of conclusion sessions where you look at yourself after the first quarter, after first 6 months, after 1 year, you look at yourself, you look at the plan, and then you see there's a delta. There's always a delta. So, but the question is, why is there a delta? Is there a delta because I was so busy and focusing on the daily work that you do need to do to funding the other parts? Then the question comes up, maybe I should raise money because if I'm continuing with this, I will not be able to get anywhere. Or is the delta because I was surprised how long it took to build this and that? Then the question comes in, maybe I do need to get more people working on that because I'm not making the development so fast as I wanted to because there's a lack of knowledge or there's problems. I was, what I'm getting to, right? So there's
Anyway,
finding the right balance between having a plan and idea and actually building, right? Because as you said, there can be so many good plans in the very end. Reality hits us with a hammer, and we don't know where we're going to. I'm very happy that you took the time, especially as you took the time so spontaneously. I'm very happy
of
to see
course.
that there's people working on these kind of things in their free time. I would like to continue having contact with you because I'm very interested in these kind of open source projects. A friend of mine brought me into open source, but he is all about software, and so I'm all about open source robotics, and would like to see maybe we can link you with other people. Maybe we can find an idea how you can spend more time on that versus and I mean, maybe you love your job and you would like to keep both things, right? So there's no offense. It's just all the possibilities, and yeah, I'm very curious to see what comes out of it. Is there anything that you that you can share with me what you can do for this year or what you have in plan for your startup for this year? Is there because I mean, at the very end, it should be a working humanoid, right? But is there
Of
something
course.
that you haven't planned? Is it yes? I'm planning to have the um, written form of the company and getting registered, or I would like to have a name. I know you said that you have a name, and but yeah, maybe you can say a few sentences about this.
Okay, absolutely. So, what I always do at the start of every year is set myself kind of a mission for where we'll be as soon as New Year's Eve comes around, essentially. So, by December 31st, where do I want to have the state of the robot, essentially? And back in 2022, we had a full lower body assembled, but just the approach to the entire structure of the body being entirely 3D printed with no supports as far as metal or aluminum goes, it had issues with shock resistance, and it just wasn't as rugged as I would have liked it to be. So then find that over 2023 and settled on, hey, let's combine aluminum extrusion, the 2020 aluminum extrusion stuff that 3D printers can be constructed out of, or little desktop CNCs, widely accessible aluminum parts. So combine that with 3D printed components, makes a good robot structure, surprisingly. So here in 2024, we're going to take that structure that we've refined and combine it with these new actuators to build a functional lower body of a humanoid robot. So my goal by December 31st is to have this lower half, basically the waist down of this humanoid platform developed, and basically get working on the URDF model for it to start running it through simulations and start tapping into LLMs to train it to walk, to balance, etc. and then work on the upper body for that. So that's my goal for the rest of this year, essentially, and um, and just keep further refining it. That's the mission for this year. Take it this year and see where we are come New Year's. Hopefully, we can be starting the torso come next January. That's the goal. So, and maybe work with Dexhand if we have the chance. That'd be great.
So I can definitely say that my main goal for this year is when it comes to this podcast is keeping it. So releasing every week an episode on Thursday, and so I'm really so I can promise you I will definitely come back to you if you are still there, if I'm still there, that we're coming together and see. So what happened in the last six months, 12 months, to see how far you've come. I really would like to share some pictures and videos on that. I saw some sneaky peeky pictures that you shared online, and yeah, maybe afterwards we can have a look at if there is more that you are able to or willing to share, because very often with startup founders, I see that they are so concerned about their ideas and the product versus everything is about execution. And the best idea is nothing if you're not able to execute. So doesn't mean NDAs there's a reason why they exist, and it doesn't mean there's a reason why their stealth mode is, but most of the time it's all about execution. So people should not be worried
Oh
about
yeah.
too much about their own products, because it's just there's so many things to make something successful that pictures and videos is most likely not the bottleneck of this. So I'm keen to see what you're willing to share, and yeah, I'm very happy that you took the time so spontaneously, as I said, and as I said again. I'm definitely trying to get a few of you guys connected, even though I do know that you're in contact with a lot of people already. But yeah, let's see where it goes.
Oh, that'd be great. I'd love to talk about this again, follow up in the future when, with more stuff developed, of course, and we're looking forward to talk with more people and yourself again. Maybe get more people in a talk to have more of a discussion on this sort of stuff. And just to touch on what you mentioned with the stealth startup thing, I can again understand why some startups go that route. Maybe if they were developing like a super secret technology that no one's done before, maybe. But when it comes to this sort of thing, I believe that you need to show what you're working on. And in the case of it's open source, it's going to be open source anyway. You might as well share what you're working on and get feedback. And how else are you going to generate interest in what you're working on if you don't show anything? So of course, we're going to keep posting updates weekly if we can, and just keep the updates coming. That's what we're going to do.
Thank you for your time. Your day is about to end. My day is about to start. So thank you very much, Ian. Is it Ian or is it Ian?
It's Ian.
Ian. So thanks for being my guest, and I wish you a good night and talk to you very soon.
Thank you very much.